youth webinar series. Today, we're looking at the issues of elections in the SADC region. My name is Brighton Ncube. On the panel, I'm joined by Netai Marova from the CCC, Citizen Coalition for Change, based in Zimbabwe. And I'm joined by Joseph Kalimbwe, the Information and Publicity Secretary for UPND from Zambia. And also I'm joined by Boako Setiko, the Secretary of International Relations in Southern African Students Union, SASO from Botswana, as well as Piwo from South African Students Congress NEC member, SASCO in South Africa. So today we're going to unpack the issue of elections in the SADC region. What's the voice and the role of young people? What is the role of young people in the elections? What are they supposed to do? We have seen many times young people have been used as conduits of violence, but I want to unpack now and understand what is the role of young people in the issues of elections. Before I waste too much of the time, let me hand over the platform to Netai Marova from the CCC, a party which is based in Zimbabwe, to unpack the role of young people in the elections in the SADC region. Netai, over to you, ma'am.
Thank you very much, Brighton. I don't know if you can hear me clearly. Just kindly confirm so that I know you can hear me. Okay. Thank you very much for the invite to this discussion. My name is Netai Marova, like you have clearly said it. Firstly, before I talk about the specific role of young people, let me just maybe give a brief background. Within the SADC region, we all know that we need to understand how did we come about having the SADC platform? How did we have it? It came as a result of electoral processes. So as young people, we need to understand that. Once we understand that, we also then, it makes our life easier to be able to understand our role in terms of safeguarding that within the region. So given that, we can't allow, why do I want to say this background? We can't allow the dictators within the region to hold our future at ransom as the young people. We can't allow any other person, to go against the respect of the rule of law within our countries and within the region. So given this background, what is our role as young people? Number one, our role is to safeguard the one man, one vote. This one man, one vote, which also gave us this region that we so love, we celebrate about. Africa is very beautiful. Africa has everything. It is our responsibility as young people to safeguard. We all know electoral processes, as much as electoral processes in our countries are the ones that determine the leadership of the region. So our role as young people, given that, is to safeguard the one man, one vote. Secondly, before we also even get to the region, as young people, we need to mobilize as many other young people within our communities, our countries, in the region to participate in electoral processes. Our politics determines almost everything in our day-to-day living. The economy that we live in, our social living, our culture, all the other aspects of our life, they are equally affected by politics. So politics is the one that gives us these electoral processes that we have to participate in. So it is number one role of every young person to mobilize, conscientize every other young person to participate in electoral processes. Why do we have to participate in electoral processes? We participate in these electoral processes because number one, we want to elect the leadership of our choice. We want to elect the leadership that we believe in and is able to usher in development in our communities, in our country, and within the region. Reason why our country, I'll give an example of my country, Zimbabwe. Why do we have bad economic systems, bad everything? It's because we have the wrong leadership in power. And as a young people, if we continue to let the situation remain like that, it means our future is going to be taken for granted. And if our future is taken for granted, we will lose our chance to shine and develop our country. And we'll actually jeopardize the future of the next generation that is going to come. So as the young people, we should not allow such things to happen. So it then becomes my second point of our important role as young people, which is to defend democracy. defend the rule of law, defend development in our country. How do we defend this? We defend by, number one, participating. How do we defend this? We defend by also being part of the processes. Being part of the processes, yes, is like I have highlighted, is number one, participating. Secondly, also safeguarding that and making sure that electoral processes go on in the way that they are supposed to be. Fair, no violence, no what we are witnessing in Zimbabwe, of having violence, taking over, processes that are supposed to usher in the leadership of our choice. That should not happen in our lifetime as the young people. It is our responsibility to make sure that we safeguard such things. So what do we have to do as the young people to make sure that we safeguard that? We need to make sure that we speak out against such inhuman and rogue elements. We need to make sure that we speak out. It is not only speaking out, because we all can't speak out, obvious. We have different roles that we can participate as young people. We can either be speaking out, others can either be leading, in the fight for different changes that we want to see in our communities and within the region. Others can be leading in the forefront in the democratic struggle. So these are the critical roles that we have as the young people. The other thing I just want to add and talk about is the issue of sacrifice. As the young people, we need to start having the spirit of sacrifice. We need to sacrifice our lives to be able to see the change that we want to see in our communities, in our SADC region. We have to be able to sacrifice. We have to be able to sacrifice to participate in electoral processes. We have to sacrifice and forgo some of the other good things that we could have done for our lives, for us to be able to realize the good SADC region that we always want to see. There are some political analysts who always talk about electoral processes, how good they are to different countries, to countries, in our democratic processes, in our development as a nation. We need to understand and know that electoral processes are the ones that usher in the leadership that gives us that leads in the development of the country. So as the young people, we need to also understand that the ballot is stronger than the bullet. Nothing beats civilian rule. So as the young people, we should be torch bearers to make sure that we exercise our right without any violations, without any intimidation from anyone, without any hindrances from anything. So as the young people, it is our role, number one, to make sure that we safeguard our voices through the ballot. At one point, Hillary Clinton once said, voting is the most precious right of every citizen, and we have moral obligation to ensure the integrity of our voting process. I believe he said this message was like entitled to the young people to make sure that we really exercise our right to participate in electoral processes. We all know that bed officials, obviously, they are elected by citizens who do not participate in electoral processes. And we as the young people, if we don't participate in these electoral processes, we just usher in bed officials, like the example of Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe used to have a history of apartheid where young people were not participating in elections. And this is what has brought us to the predicament that we are in now in Zimbabwe. Yes, of course, in 2018, young people really tried to participate greatly. They did very well. Change was, they voted for change, but in the process, we ended up being rigged. And this is also where the other role of the young people comes into, to defend the people's vote. We are the backbone of our economies. We are the backbone of electoral processes that happen in our countries. So it remains our sole role and responsibility to defend the elections, to defend the result of the election, so that we never give a chance whereby we get to have election of bed officials in our countries. So briefly, this is all I had to say regards the role of the young people in our country, in our communities, in our countries, and within the region. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Nensai, for that presentation. Talk about the issue of defending. Young people should defend the vote, to go in large numbers and register to vote, as well as to speak out about issues of governance, corruption, and all that. But now, Nensai, before you go, let's look at the issue of now the CCC party and the involvement of young people in the electoral processes. You guys have been going door by door, doing door-to-door campaigns, and encouraging people to register to vote. What are some of the experiences that we have encountered and some of the challenges that we've encountered trying to do that?
Okay, I believe you are in Zimbabwe, Brighton, and you also live with the young people, and you have been hearing some of the experiences and challenges that hinders young people from participating in electoral processes. I'll speak about this, relating to my own personal life story when I joined politics. 2013 in Zimbabwe, we had elections. I could not participate in the 2013 elections because I was so scared of the violence that had happened in the 2008 elections. 2008, I was Form 1 and I was studying in Rusike High School down in Goromonzi. And some of the times we were being forced to go and gather out in bonfires, attend gatherings that we didn't even want. I was just Form 1 when all that was happening. So when the 2013 elections happened in Zimbabwe, I did not wanted to even be closer to electoral processes because I was so scared of the violence. This is some of the things that still intimidate the young people even up to now. Look at what is happening. We have the by-elections campaign that is supposed to be happening freely and fairly, as what is in the constitution, is what we also want to see in our communities. But in Zimbabwe, we are not seeing that happening. Why? Because we are having some selfish people who do not want to leave office, who still want to protect their bad leadership and bad governance to the country. So these are some of the things that the young people, don't want to go through. But one thing I would want to say, I would want to appreciate is now the young people have realized to see if they continue being scared and being afraid of this violence that is happening. They are just taking their future for granted. Now we have seen in Kwekwe, young people were just attending a rally and it was disrupted violently. We ended up losing a person's life. This is what we should not even tolerate to see in our countries. We don't even want to see it. Our Kwekwe Central candidate, Honorable Judith Tobaiwa, she's always being her campaigns are always being disrupted. Whenever she wants to do door-to-door campaign, just door-to-door campaigns, ZANU-PF thugs come and disrupt the processes. We as young people, we don't want to see this. And these are the challenges some of our youthful candidates are facing. Yes, of course, the other challenges that the young people faces in these electoral processes, electoral participation, campaigns and everything is an issue of also resources. Young people like in Zimbabwe, majority of our young people are not employed. They survive on just hustling in the streets. And most of them, when they want to do their hustle in the streets, they can't even do it because in the process, the police comes and disrupts everything. This is just a bad economy that we have that doesn't even care about the welfare of the young people, about the welfare of any ordinary citizen. So as the young people, they end up, even if they have interest to participate in electoral processes, even if they have interest to also be elected as candidates, elections requires to have resources. And young people, sometimes they don't have enough resources to participate in these electoral processes. There are a lot of other challenges. I'll talk of the challenges that I also faced as a young woman, due to my participation in politics. No one doesn't know of my story. I just joined politics as a student leader when I was a student at Chino University of Technology. And every time we would lead in process, speaking out about fees must fall, riot would come and disrupt. Instead of police having to come and protect us as the students, as the citizens, they come and disrupt the processes. But whatever that we'll be speaking out against, it's not only for my own good as Netsai Maro. It benefits every student. It benefits every young person. It benefits literally everyone who is in Zimbabwe. Because what I want to see is a better Zimbabwe. I went through so many arrests to the extent that at some point courted to follow me on hospital bed. I believe there is no any one person who would want to go through such experiences. And I always say, whatever that I have went through, let it end with us, myself, Joanna and Cecilia, and obviously all the other young people. We don't want to see that continue happening. It's just so very unfortunate that our government in Zimbabwe is so ruthless and bloodthirsty. They don't care about our welfare. They don't care about our well-being as the young people, as citizens in the country. They continue to want to do the politics of violence, which is what we don't even want to see. Besides the arrest that I also went through, I got to be exposed to a most horrendous and painful torture in the hands of state authorities. You know, I was only coming from a demonstration in Warren Park, but I got to have scars that I was never born with, and today I get to live with that. For me, the scars that I have gives me a reason to continue speaking out for change in my home country, because I don't want to see any other young person go through. So given all these challenges, given all these life experiences that I have been exposed to as a young woman in politics, as a young person who is so interested in having my country realize change, these are some of also the other challenges that we see that our young people face in our communities, in our country, in different constituencies. These are the challenges that we are meant to be exposed to. But my message to the young people, given all these challenges, we should never give up. We should never tolerate a dictator to celebrate after inflicting pain on us. And we should never even shed a tear in front of them to show them that they have caused pain to us. We should continue fight as young people up until we realize the change that we want to see, up until we realize the best leadership that we want to see in the SADC region. Do you know why I keep on giving references to our country and the region? It's because the leadership that we elect in our countries is the same leadership that builds up the SADC committee region that we have. And one thing that pains me a lot is, given all the violence that has started to happen in the current by-election campaigns that are happening in Zimbabwe, I haven't seen any sentence of condemnation of the violence that is happening in my country. Does that mean the leadership that is in the SADC region is siding with the dictator in Zimbabwe? And us as the young people, this is my message personally also as Netai, is to all the other young people. This is a lesson that we should learn. By electing bad officials, we suffer the consequences. So we should never tolerate and allow such things to happen, because our future will hold the ransom. Right now, we have lost a young person, 35 years. He could have been even continuing with the fight for change. He could have been even doing all other things that benefit the country. But we have lost a soul because of violence. We have lost a soul because of selfish tendencies of some leaders that want to continue in power, but they don't have the capacity. They're actually taking the nation down. This is what we don't want to see as the young people. So given all these challenges, we should continue fighting up until we realize the best communities that we want to see.
Thank you so much, Netai, for that presentation. Touch on the issue of violence. Over the years, Zimbabwe is experiencing violence. Sometimes comes to elections, 2008 violence, 2018 violence again, the 1st of August violence, and now we saw again the violence in Kwekwe. So the issue of violence keeps on coming back. Back in the 80s again, violence was done by the ruling party against opposition parties. So the issue of violence and young people is something to talk about. Thank you so much, Netai, for that presentation. Right now, let me go to Piwo. Piwo is coming from South Africa. She's going to talk about the issue of elections, the experience in the last elections in the local government elections in South Africa, and what she learned from there, and what can be done, and what's the role of young people in the electoral process. Piwo, over to you, ma'am. You can go into the presentation.
Okay, thank you. Hi, everyone. I hope I am audible enough.
Yes,
thank you. I'm going to start my presentation now. So the election system in our country symbolizes the democracy stance, also voicing out the voices of the voiceless. In the past, the youth used to have a strong voice in fighting for democracy, like the 1976 to 2016 uprising in South Africa and the October 4th uprising in the University of Zimbabwe. The youth still has its voice, and we see this through the Fees Must Fall government movement, government and police brutality in Eswatini and in Zimbabwe. But when it comes to elections, the youth's voice becomes silent, and the participation decreases each and every year. Through my own analysis, the youth is tired of fighting for a system that doesn't or won't benefit them. The youth is tired of hearing the same old promises, but no change is being implemented. Government in our respective countries need to understand that the youth is as powerful as the elders. It also needs to understand that the youth isn't the same as elders. The youth wants implementation, while the elders have seen change through their struggle of democracy, meaning that the struggles are not the same. In South Africa, local government elections were going on last year, and there was a large decrease in the number of voters who registered, especially the youth. 1.8 million 18 to 19-year-olds were eligible to vote, but 90% didn't bother registering to vote. Less than 20% of 20 to 35-year-olds registered to vote. And all of this is caused by not understanding the struggles of the youth. The elections campaign in most SADC countries are usually ran by the youth. And how can the youth that is politically affiliated resonate or rather understand the youth that isn't affiliated and vice versa? Why is it that the youth can successfully run an elections campaign in their country but can't relate to their own peers or remind their peers who aren't affiliated the importance of voting? These are the type of questions we need to ask ourselves as student leaders and prospective leaders. I recognize the increase of youth in our respective parliaments and governmental structures, particularly in Namibia, South Africa, Zambia, and Zimbabwe. But what does it help if it's just a small portion that will be sidelined in most parliamentary meetings or gatherings? This is why it is important for those who are young and elected to ensure that the elders hear the youth's voice, challenge the unthinkable so that the voice of the youth can be heard and change can be brought forward. So, in essence, the role of the youth in elections is to ensure that their voices and cries are heard by simply influencing one another to cast our own vote. I prepared something small because I was thinking of the time that we were limited to, which was 5 minutes. I hope my presentation was articulate enough and wasn't and was fulfilled. Thank you very much.
Right, to your school on that, touching on the issue of the 19th youth uprising as well as the Fees Must Fall. So about your experience from the Fees Must Fall as well as in terms of last government elections. How was the youth participation in terms of those elections? How was the number of young people participating in these elections?
Okay, in terms of the Fees Must Fall movement, there was a whole number of youth that was participating in this, because everyone in each and every university or TVET college was actually influenced or was impacted by the fee-free issue and the fee increase that was happening in the country. But when it comes to elections, as I've said before, not everyone participates, because most of our youth peers in South Africa see the electoral system as political, and some aren't politically affiliated. That is why you wouldn't see an increase, or you would see such a decrease in the number of voting for the youth. But when it comes to youth representation in electoral campaigns, it was mostly the youth that is politically affiliated, like your ANC Youth League, EFF, and so on, and other political parties, youth leagues that actually who participated into the electoral system. Other youth or members of the communities that fall under 18 to 35-year-old weren't really amped or weren't really impacted to, or they didn't even see the need to vote, because as I've highlighted in my speech is they don't see any implementation. They are not impacted, or they are not concerned, rather than how they were concerned about Fees Must Fall, because they were impacted with the fees issue, but with electoral system, they are not impacted within their own views because there isn't any implementation that is being done by the government.
Thank you so much, Pio, for that. But now, I want to compare with the issue of Zimbabwe now. In the last previous elections, there's been voter apathy in Zimbabwe. Young people have been shying away from going to register to vote because they're saying they are tired of the system. They have been voting, but there's been no change. What can you say to young people across in Zimbabwe in terms of the impact and the importance of their vote? Is their right to vote, but what can you say about the importance of them going to cast their vote?
You know, as the previous speaker has highlighted, it's so important for each and everyone to cast their vote and actually go vote, because not only are you impacting the country, but it's more of you are having a say in what actually happens in your country. So if the youth of Zimbabwe can all stand together, they can be able to elect who they actually see fit to run the country, who can fulfill their promises or what they want. So they need the youth, student leaders, and all those who are politically affiliated need to actually try and impact and also influence other youth that doesn't see the need to vote to actually cast their vote, because they can be able to have a voice and they can be able to get the person that they want or the candidate that they want. They can elect that person and the person can actually deliver for them, deliver what they want. So as much as we don't really control, but one voice, as much as one voice doesn't control what happens in the country, a lot of people, if the youth comes together, they can actually control what actually happens in the country. And we've seen this through the Fees Must Fall actually, and other youth uprisings, that the youth does play an impact and in the country. And if they are able to stand together, they can achieve so much more together.
Thanks so much, Pio, for that. I'll come back to you for more questions as we get more questions from our viewers who are watching this webinar series. If you're just joining us, we are doing the webinar series looking at the SADC region, the issue of elections in the SADC region. What is the voice and what is the role of young people when it comes to electoral processes? Now, let's jump to Joseph Kalimba from Zambia. He's Secretary for Information in Zambia. So, Joseph, want to hear from you. Last year, we had elections in Zambia. What was the role of young people there? What did you guys do in Zambia as young people? Over to you, Joseph.
First of all, thank you very much for having me. We were very clear from the start to say we needed a Zambia that was stable, free, and able to stand on its own 2 feet, and that leadership was not being provided by President Lungu. So you found that young people like me joined the opposition to fight against the former regime, and we fought until the end. We went to the picket lines, fighting punch for punch with the dictator until we were successfully defeated, because we believed this country belonged to all of us. We believed the masses of our people needed a better life. We believed the masses of our people needed a better upbringing. We wanted them to grow up in a Zambia that can be able to protect them, in a Zambia that can be able to provide them with better healthcare services, with a better education. And so we went out to fight and fight very strongly. But then we must also understand that while we were fighting, there were consequences. We have some of our comrades and cadres who were arrested. Some of them died and they are dead right now. They were not able to see this victory that we achieved as an opposition. And that is part of the revolution. That is part of the pain that you face when you're in the opposition, particularly in Africa. We're coming from a very painful past, and we believe that we could be able to win an election on the basis that we told our people that they shouldn't just vote for us because we're in the opposition. We told them to say, don't vote for us just because we are fed up with the government. Vote for us because we believe we've got better economic policies, because we believe that we've got better ideas on the table. And when you look at it, some of us came through the student ranks. We came through the student politics ranks. I was a student union president at the University of Namibia before I joined the opposition forces in my country. And we went out to ensure that we fight. But also, we must understand that this election was not won on the day of the voting. It wasn't won on the day that the declaration was made. It was won way before, during the time that we were mobilizing the masses of our people, particularly the young people. We mobilized them to register to vote in their masses. We went out through Lusaka, throughout the small towns and the big cities, in the villages. We went out to speak frankly and honestly about the issues that we faced as a country. And one of the issues that we faced is that we began to believe that in as much as Edgar Lungu and the Patriotic Front came with better ideas before when they were in the opposition, they drove and began to drive our country into a ditch. And so we wanted to go to the picket lines. We wanted to go to the battlefield to take our country back. So we mobilized the masses of our young people, go and register to vote, and they went out in their masses. We had the biggest voter turnout in the history of our country's electoral process. We had about 7.2 million voters. Of that number, 3.4 were young people between the ages of 18 and 35. So we ran a very, very spirited voter registration process, because we knew that if we were going to win the election, we were in the opposition, we did not have access to state resources, we did not have access to the same money as the ruling party then had. And so we knew that if we were to win, we needed to win with a big number. And so we mobilized the masses of our young people, told them what they were facing, the students in the universities, the problem that they were facing. We mobilized the students that are unemployed. Masses of them are unemployed. They don't have access to basic things that government must be able to provide for them, that they were living in a country that could be able to help them up, but that country was not coming forth. And so we went out, mobilizing, telling them about why they needed to register to vote. And they went. They registered to vote, and we were very clear and precise from the start to say, comrades, when you go to register and vote, there were frustration processes that they were putting in place to say, in this area where the ruling party is a stronghold, the registration process is going very smoothly, the electoral registration process is going very smoothly. While where we were strongholds as opposition, there were hindrances, issues of people, the voters' cards not being available, the printing and all those things. But we told the masses of our people that this is part of the struggle. If we were to win, we needed to be in this struggle, and we needed to finish it until its complete end. And so we're telling them to say it's better for you to stand in the line for 12 hours to get your voter's card than to wait for another 5 years to have Edgar Lungu continue as president of the Republic of Zambia. And so we went out mobilizing them. And what we knew is that in the previous elections, we lost the elections before. Our president lost elections 4 times. And so we needed to go to the drawing board. What made us lose? What was the problem? What happened in this and this province? How come we got these votes in this and this province? And so we went out very clear and precise to say, if we got the 1 million votes in 2016, how can we move from 1 million to 2 million? How can we change that kind of paradigm shift? And so we are very clear. And what we did is that we went out, particularly to those that are in the villages, because that is where now we were lacking support. In the urban areas, in the cities and in the towns, the support was there because these people are, they are modernized, they got social media, and they can be able to see what is happening. So they can differentiate wrong from right. But the people in the rural areas that do not have access to social media, those are the problems. So they come to them, the ruling parties come to them, and then they give them these small parcels, and then they tell them to go and vote, and they vote. So we went to camp with those people to tell them why it's important that they register to vote, to tell them why the country needed to be saved. And we must be very clear to say this election was won through the influence of the young people. They came out in their numbers to go and correct the problems and the mistakes of their parents that they made in voting for Edgar Lungu and his political party. And so while we were mobilizing for the registration process, we understood that during the voting also we needed to go out and ensure that we complete the process. And we laid out a roadmap to say, how do we complete this process, comrades? How do we complete the process of ensuring that the masses of our people, the everyday kids, the elders, the youths that are unemployed can feel a part of belonging in their country? And so what we did is that on election day, we went out to defend the vote. We went out to tell the masses of our people to mobilize and tell them to say, the vote must be defended. Don't just vote and go home. Vote and remain. Watch out. If the vote is being rigged, you must see what is happening. And they were very alert from the start. From the start, it was quite difficult because we were afraid. Lungu was beginning to do these dictatorial tactics, like we see what happens in Zimbabwe and in Uganda. It was going in that road. So the masses of our people were beginning to get afraid and being intimidated by those things. But we are telling them to say, this is our country. We need to go out and save it. Politically, we're coming from a very painful past, and we needed to change that political landscape. And so what we did is that we went out to defend the vote. After voting, the masses of our people joined the cadres and comrades of the UPND to guard the votes, to walk through the windows to ensure that every vote is counted. And we stayed there. Some of us were going around the city of Lusaka. Others were in different towns and villages watching every vote being counted. At 3 o'clock, we were watching through the windows, and we were very proud of our young people. They were very alert. We were saying, not with this generation, not with our generation. We were not born in 1964. We're a generation that is new. And so they went out to defend their votes. But we must understand that this process began a long time before the election period. It began even when we were still mobilizing the resources for the election. During those times, we understood that during the time of the election, there could be an internet breakdown. So we mobilized the masses of our people. We found the people that are involved in ICT and in technology to help us on how we can be able to evade the internet blockage. And so we brought them to our spaces on Twitter, we went to Facebook, we went to TV, to radio to tell them this is what might happen. But we were intimidated during that process also because, you know, it was very difficult. In such instances, we were even going to campaign, you are getting blocked. The masses of our people, some of our supporters were shot and killed. They died fighting for the country that they loved. They died wanting to ensure that Zambia is delivered safely to the next generation of Zambian leaders. And so that is what the young people did. And even as much as the election now has passed, our young people are very, very alert. They know what they want for their country. And that is what now we don't want to fall into as the new ruling party. We must ensure that there's a constant agitation, there's a constant communication between the ruling party and the masses of our people. We must ensure that the democratic process that we're not able to enjoy during the time that we're in the opposition now must enjoy that. They must be able to assemble without the police arresting them. They must be able to assemble without members and cadres of the ruling party harassing them. And we don't want anyone to be killed while they are campaigning for their own political party. So that is what we are fighting for. We are fighting for democracy, and the masses of our youths went out to deliver that kind of change that we needed, and we are very happy that Zambia was delivered. It was delivered from a regime that was very dictatorial. It was delivered from a regime that was very corrupt. And right now, we're beginning to set the way forward to ensure that our country can once again, like I mentioned, stand on its own 2 feet, economically, politically, and socially. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Joseph, for that presentation. You touched on a number of issues in terms of democracy in Zambia, the era of Edgar Lungu and the era now of HH. Now, let's look at the issue of violence. I know your president, the current president of Zambia, experienced a lot of violence from the Lungu regime. Now, let's talk about the issue of violence, which young people over the years have been used to perpetuate violence. What can you say to young people in Zimbabwe? What can you say to young people in Botswana? What can you say to young people in South Africa about now being used as conduits of violence? What can you say to young people about their role, the importance of the election, and the importance of defending the vote?
Well, we must understand that as people in politics, you shouldn't just, your political background and knowledge mustn't just evolve around your own country. You might be able to know about the politics of other countries, and we follow very well the politics that happen in other countries. One of those countries is within the SADC. South Africa, we follow what happens there. We follow what happens in Zimbabwe. We follow what happens in Botswana, across the whole region of SADC. And look, it's been very unfortunate what happens. And like we said the other day, we've been through that. We've been through that struggle. We've seen that struggle of losing our friends and cadres and comrades in cold blood, fighting for their country. We saw what happened in Zimbabwe in Kwekwe the other day, on the weekend, where somebody was killed. And, you know, what has always been the historical background within the African setup is that young people are always used as tools of violence. They are brought to these rallies and they perpetuate violence. After that happens, they get jailed. Some of them, after the jailing has been done, one fight. So they spend the rest of the lives in jail. Violence. They must participate, engage on how they can be able to stand and represent the masses of their people, how they can become councillors, how they can become members of parliament, and maybe just maybe, once they reach that age that is ripe, they can also contest to become presidents. That is what we want. And we are clear to say what we stand for must be about the country. It must be country faced. I'm from the ruling party. I love my party. I love what it stands for. But my country comes first. Zambia comes first. And so that is what we are saying, to say young people must get actively involved in the political process. And they shouldn't just be used as tools of violence, where we're seeing people in Kwekwe being killed. We saw in Zambia the masses of our young people that we lost. Some of them will never be able to see the victory that we achieved. Some of them are still in jail right now, serving prison sentences, fighting for this country. And so young people must be very active. And they must be smart also, not to be used as tools of violence. We see also what happens in South Africa, where there's very active participation within the ruling party. There's EFF, there's also this Freedom Plus, there's also this GA that is coming. Politics must be a contestation of ideas. And we believe young people must be able to provide that kind of direction. They must engage and not just be involved as tools of violence, where we're seeing members from the CCC party in Zimbabwe being harassed. That happens every time. And when some of us speak about these things, I shouldn't just be speaking about the issues that we face in Zambia. I believe the Zimbabwean struggle is mine as much as the Zambian struggle is mine. I believe the South African struggle and the struggle in Botswana belongs to me as much as the Zambian struggle is mine. As much as I'm Zambian, I must care also about what the masses of our people, my fellow brothers and sisters, are facing in Zimbabwe. And so we must be very clear and precise that the masses of our young people must be frank about the country that they want. They must put their countries first before the political parties. They must never be used as tools of violence. And they must engage frankly and honestly about the issues that they face on wanting to serve their country. We have seen previously where people were harassing us. I've been subjected to a lot of harassments. But I've gotten so used. There are people that come and say a lot of things. Even people from the Zimbabwean government, some of them say I'm a puppy that must be caged. This former minister, is it Albert Mpofu? This Charampa that is a spokesperson to the president. Some of them were in Lusaka the other day, coming here to speak about issues that they shouldn't be involved in. Coming to want to seek a relationship that is broken. We have seen instances within the SADC region where ruling parties have never spoken out against one another. They have never spoken about the issues that we face. They have never had frank conversation to say, comrades, why are you treating your people like this? Why can't you change the direction in which you are going? Because blood must never be spilled for anyone to maintain political power. And we believe young people must not be used as those tools of spilling blood. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Joseph, for the presentation. You touched on a number of issues: the role of young people, the role of young people to defend the vote. Young people must go and register to vote, as well as to stand for their democracy and their constitution. Let me go back to Piwa from South Africa. Piwa, the young people of South Africa who are in parliament now, who are representing the voices of young people. In Zimbabwe, young people were given 10 seats for them to be in parliament. What is the situation in South Africa in terms of young people's representation in parliament? What is the voice of young people in parliament? What are they saying? Are they pushing the issues of young people who are out of parliament?
I'm not sure of the number of youth representation in parliament, but from what we're seeing, we're not, as the youth of South Africa, I don't think there's anything that they are doing actually in parliament. There's no voice that we can hear coming from them. As a result, it seems as if they are just there for the vibes, or they're just bench warmers, because there's literally nothing we are hearing of them. And it's mostly former fees must fall leaders, but it's very surprising and shocking to see that when they are in parliament, it seems as if they got captured to not say anything regarding the youth voice or youth challenges. So I can't really say that the youth in parliament is actually, in a way, voicing out the challenges of the youth, because there's really nothing they are saying, most of them. The only thing that we know is some of them are in subcommittees of the parliament. But other than that, there's literally nothing we hear. It's only the only youth voice that we hear mostly in the country. It's either the voices of the student movement, which is SASCO, or the voices of the ANC Youth League only?
Thank you so much, Pio, for that. In terms of saying the voice of young people in parliament, they are not saying, they're not standing for the issues of young people. They are there just warming the benches, and some are sleepists in parliament. They're not even advocating for the issues of young people. Let me go back to Joseph as I wait for Netai to come back. Joseph, let's look at the issue now of young people. Yes, are you back?
I'm here. I just want to add a point on what Joseph was saying, which I feel is very crucial, and it really needs probably reinforcement. Joseph spoke about us young people being able to understand the politics of our country and the region. And yes, of course, internationally, it all matters to our life. I want to reiterate this, to say, see what is happening now in South Africa. There was the whole issue of xenophobia. Now we have the issue of the complaints about the Zimbabwean immigrants that have flooded South Africa. This is the problem that is actually being caused by the SADC region leaders who are not speaking out against what is happening in Zimbabwe. If the president of South Africa could have helped Zimbabwe in the 2018 elections, ensure that Zimbabwe has legitimate leadership, we couldn't be having all these problems. The Zimbabweans that are in South Africa are as a result of bad governance that is in our country. And this is our role as young people. It's actually our responsibility to make sure that we push towards the development of our countries. Whenever we see irregularities, either in our country or in the region, we have to speak out against that. Because if we don't speak out about this as it is happening, and if we allow it to continue happening, it will only affect our lives, our future, and it even affects the development of our country. Look at Zimbabwe now. We used to be the breadbasket of Africa, but today, as I am speaking, I think we are the worst country in terms of development within the region. We are now begging for everything. We don't even own anything. We don't manufacture anything in the country. Talk of small food, our own staple food. We get maize from South Africa. That shouldn't be happening. We have a lot of land in the country. We have a lot of mineral resources that can actually even finance some of the agricultural processes in the country. We have everything that we need to develop our country as Zimbabwe. And as young people, it is our sole responsibility and life. We should be the torch bearers to make sure that we enforce development in our countries. We should make sure that we enforce upholding of fair electoral processes in our countries and in the region. I just like what Joseph Kalim will always do. Whenever he sees any human rights violations in our country, he speaks out as a young person. This is our role. This is our responsibility. We should be speaking out to make sure that Zimbabwe also have change that we want to see. Look at what is happening in Zambia. We no longer hear any complaints. People are happy now. The education is free. We have heard of so many promises, from the ZANU-PF failing government. They have promised education is going to be free, health, but at this point, nothing is for free. Actually, education is one of the commodified products in the country. But we shouldn't be seeing all this happening. And as young people, we should now take a stance forward, up, to make sure that we put this to an end as soon as possible. How do we put this to an end? We should be able to speak out to make sure that we stop this. We should be able to defend our future. We should be able to defend the development of our country. One thing I like about the suffering that we have in Zimbabwe, it doesn't only affect me as Netai Marwa from the Citizens Coalition for Change. It affects everyone, even those that are being used in ZANU-PF. They are suffering. But my message to them, even today, is they also need to make sure that they safeguard their future, the future of the next generation, of their kids and grandkids to come. Because the development of Zimbabwe doesn't only benefit me, it benefits everyone. When we have good infrastructure in the country, it ushers in new investors. That actually keeps on the cycle of production and creation of good well-being in the country, which benefits all of us as citizens. So it is our role to make sure that we safeguard our future against these ruthless leaders that we are now having. I believe when our other liberators who fought in the liberation struggle, they didn't fight for us to experience what we are experiencing in Zimbabwe. They fought so that Zimbabwe could have change for the good, not what we are seeing. You know, if you sit on a conversation with our senior leaders who fought in the liberation struggle, they will tell you that they wanted to see Zimbabwe realize its best potential. But it's very unfortunate. It was in the wrong hands since 1980, I will say this, because during the Smith regime, if you look into the pictures and the documentaries of the history of Zimbabwe, we used to have a bus system that was very efficient. We used to have roads that were clear, in as much as they were still few, but at least they didn't have potholes. They were at a better standard. But look at now, we now have a whole potholed country. We in some communities, we don't even have proper roads, but we have all the resources that it takes to develop the country. And as the young people, this is our major role, to make sure that we put these authorities to book, to deliver rightfully to their election promises. And it's unfortunate in the case of my country, Zimbabwe, we have leaders that are actually incompetent, that cannot deliver anything. And we have realized it because it's 42 years now since they're in government. They have never delivered anything. I am 27 years today, celebrating my birthday without nothing. Other 27-year-olds in other developed countries, they own properties, they own better things for their life. They're actually even living without even so much, without even having to be so much concentrated on what is happening in the politics, because their economies are flowing normally, and they are only concentrating about self-development of their lives and their families, and also excelling so that they can reach to their best potential. But I, as a young person from Zimbabwe, I can't live a life concentrating on that, because behind my back, I'm thinking about liberating my country from these ruthless leaders that we have. So it is our responsibility as young people to make sure that we defend all the irregularities that in our country and within the region. I was so disappointed, let me say this, when I saw the South African government issuing a statement on what was happening in Ukraine. Ukraine is very far, but they are living Zimbabwe, which is very close. Events that are happening that they see every day. I haven't heard of any statement of condemnation, not only statement, because at this point of where we are, we no longer want to survive on statements. We now want action, because the struggle in Zimbabwe has gone so long, and we now want to make sure that at least also the young people of Zimbabwe get a benefit of what they need to live up to during the days of their lives. So I believe this is going to be the end of it, and the days to come, the young people of all the other regions should actually continue to participate, so that we put an end the struggle for now fighting for jobs in South Africa. The jobs in South Africa are supposed to be for South Africans. The jobs in Zimbabwe are supposed to be for Zimbabweans. And we as Zimbabweans should be able to make sure that we don't go and flood into other people's countries. We need to defend our struggle as the young people. And the other young people within the other region should also make sure that they safeguard their territory. How do they safeguard their territory? They have to make sure that they speak out against all the other irregularities in other countries, so that we don't give problems into other countries. The situation of the immigrants that are in South Africa pains me a lot. It's a very emotional issue, because the Zimbabweans going to South Africa and all other countries, they're not just going because they want to go there, but because they have nothing in their country, and at least they're trying to look for greener pastures so that they can sustain their families. But it's so unfortunate that, because also they're now flooding other countries, and it's now becoming a crisis that needs leadership. And within the region, we have the leaders who are supposed to act on this, but they're not doing so. And as the young people, it is our responsibility to make sure that we put those authorities to book, because if they are not able to deliver, if they are not able to solve these problems, we should just remove them. We shouldn't even be thinking twice about this. We should just remove them and elect the leaders that are for the people and for the development of the countries and the region.
Thank you so much, Netsai, on that. I wanted to touch on the issue of SADC as a whole, in terms of SADC as a body. We've seen a number of people saying SADC is one of the useless bodies in terms of the region that do not advocate or speak on the number of issues that are affecting countries in the region. I wanted to pose this to Joseph in terms of they are in government now. They sit in the body, in SADC body as a country. What is the role of SADC, and what can we learn in the previous years that SADC has failed to do in terms of checking each other, checking other countries? What can we learn and what can you say that things will change as Zambia now is there in SADC region, having different political parties there in government? What can you say, Joseph, to that in terms of SADC region? Some people have been viewing it as a useless body which has not kind of check each other, cross-check each other, instead of call each other out. What can you say about that, Joseph?
Well, we must be able to understand that we are living in a new era, and historically we've been able to know that SADC has been very ineffective in its implementation of policies. Personally, I believe there's a need to revamp SADC as an organization. SADC has not been able to speak frankly and honestly about the struggles that the masses of our people within the region are facing. We've seen instances that happen in Eswatini, where the king is single-handedly running the country like a family business. We've seen what happens in Zimbabwe, where there was Zimbabwean Lives Matter in 2019 and 2020. And people are being beaten and harassed by the police. And SADC never came out to condemn those things. So how then do the masses of our people support this institution as one that can be able to speak honestly and frankly about their issues? How then do the masses of our people within SADC trust this organization? Because I believe SADC has lost the trust of the masses of our people. Therefore, it is important that SADC must reshape, SADC must revamp. And SADC needs a leadership that concerns itself on the interest of our people, on the interest of our people in Francistown in Botswana, on the interest of our people in Limpopo province, on the interest of our people, whether they're in Bulawayo or they are here in Lusaka or they are in any other country within the region. But SADC has not been able to provide that leadership. Whenever we looked up SADC to provide the leadership that we need, SADC has been that president and that institution that has looked at our problems from the window of an aircraft, from the window of a private jet, instead of being on the ground to fix the problems that we face, instead of being on the ground to comfort those who are facing difficulties, instead of being on the ground to give hope and inspiration to the masses of our people that are struggling. That is how SADC has been operating. SADC has been rallying its own self. It has been, we've seen where SADC has been releasing statements to speak about issues of sanctions. We've seen those things. But SADC has never come out very clearly and openly to support the masses of our people. It has always been the support of fellow presidents. When a president wins an election, we saw what happens in happened in Malawi with Mbingu Wamtarika. Mbingu won an election, rather not Mbingu, Peter, his brother. Peter Wamtarika won an election in Malawi. That election was very compromised. SADC came out to issue a statement to congratulate him and said the election was very free and fair. Months later, the courts in Malawi declared that the election was actually not free and fair. They went for an election rerun and he lost. So the support was to the president and not to the masses of the people in Malawi. And so that kind of shift gives the masses of our people the reason to lose faith in this institution. So therefore, the need for government, and particularly I believe, I'm not in government, I'm from the ruling party, but I'm not a government official in the Republic of Zambia. But I believe that this is a time that SADC must begin to speak up, frankly, and take a stance. The only time that SADC was very close to taking a stance was in 2007 when the president called Levi Mwanawasa. They had met in Windhoek for a summit and they said they wanted to take a stand because they believed then that Zimbabwe was a sinking Titanic. That's what he said as the chairperson of SADC. But then months later we lost him and he died in very unclear circumstances. And so we see that some presidents are afraid to pronounce themselves on certain issues because of those historical backgrounds of what has happened before with people that speak out about those issues. But I think this is the time that we begin to provide leadership. And I believe my country, Zambia, can be able to provide that direction. I believe South Africa can provide that direction. I believe Botswana can provide that direction, like we saw with Ian Kama speaking about certain things. So that must be done. We must be able to fill in the leadership vacuum to speak about the issue that the masses of our people face and have frank conversations. Presidents must speak with each other. We must negotiate, even with people that we don't agree with, because that is part of leadership. In as much as you don't agree with people, when you meet at a meeting, you extend a hand of friendship, but let them know that you are not friends until democratic processes are installed in their countries. You must extend a hand in a democratic way, but let them know that we don't believe in their ways of human rights violations. Because in the end, the masses of our people will look at SADC like it has always been an organization that never stands for them, an organization that never speaks on their behalf. I believe that right now, with the new election that we had won in Zambia, my country can be able to provide that kind of leadership direction to speak and put the interests of the masses of our people within the region first. I believe also South Africa must also come out and be able to do that, because South Africa is a major superpower. It's a major voice within not just SADC but within Africa. And so I believe if these countries begin to speak and engage in that broader narrative, SADC can change, SADC can revamp, and SADC can be able to provide direction in terms of putting the interests of the masses of our people first. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Joseph, for that response. Now, comrades, as we wrap up our discussion, let's try to look at in Zambia. Joseph from Zambia, what can you say to young people who are listening and watching this webinar series on elections in South Africa? What can you say to them who are in Zimbabwe, who are in Namibia, who are in Botswana, South Africa? What can you say to them in terms of the importance and the right to defend their vote? What can you say to them, let's say, the young people who are in Zambia? What can you say to the young people in Botswana? And what lessons can we draw from other countries who have done it? We've seen in South Africa, POS just painted a picture of how the fees must fall, this 1976 uprising, how young people were at the forefront. What can we learn from those countries that have done it? Young people have been at the forefront, and people are now in parliament. What can we learn from there? I'll start with you, Pio. What can we learn from other countries? And what can you say to other people in other countries? Pio, I'll start with you, then I'll go to Netsai, then I'll close with Joseph.
Okay, the only thing I can say to other young people in other SADC countries is basically what I've been reiterating this whole time, that in order for change to come, you don't need only one voice, but you need a voice of everyone who's going to bring that change and implement that change. One needs to go out there, go and cast their vote so that their voice can be heard. Yeah, that's basically the only thing I have with how we can influence the youth in other countries.
Thanks so much, Pio, for that closing remarks. Let me go to Netsai. Netsai, what are your closing remarks? What can you learn from Zambia, and what can you say to other young people who are watching this webinar series?
Okay. One thing that I want to first talk about to all the young people, wherever they are, is, I liked the address that was done by my president, Nelson Chamisa, when he launched our party, that we are launching a new culture of politics. We are launching tolerance in the country. Let's do our politics without any violence. So this is also my message to all the young people. As we do our politics, as we go into our electoral processes, as we do all our campaigns, let's tread in tolerance. There is no need of use of violence. From all the political parties within the region, let's all unite to usher in a good culture of politics, the culture that has never been there. We have had so much wars, the Chimurengas that happened in Zimbabwe, in all the other regions. That has to end during the time it happened. We appreciate whatever efforts that were made and wherever they have put us to date. But now let's usher in a new culture of tolerance. Let's usher in a new culture of doing politics with an understanding that politics is not about fighting, but it's just a contestation of ideas. Politics is about electing the leaders that we want to govern our country. Secondly, we draw so much inspiration from the victory that happened in Zambia. And I actually say kudos to all the young people that stood firm to defend democracy in Zambia. And we as the young people in Zimbabwe, we draw so much inspiration. And I think that actually has rejuvenated the spirits of all the other young leaders that are fighting for change in Zimbabwe. Every time when we conduct our programs, every time when we speak out for change, young people always relate that it has also happened in Zambia. So it is also possible it can happen in our country. So to all the young people in Zimbabwe, let's keep up the hope. Let's keep fighting. Change can happen. We need to continue defending the struggle. We need to continue defending our future and development of our country, because as we do our politics, we're not just doing for just electing President Nelson Chamisa, no, but we are electing our hope. We are electing a development of our country. We are electing an end to all the human rights violations. So this is my message to all the young people. I thank you.
Thanks so much, Netai, for the presentation. Now, you've drawn lessons from Zambia, what you've learned from Zambia, and what we can learn from other countries as Zimbabwe. Now, let me jump to Joseph Kalimbo to hear from him. They've done it in Zambia. The young people are at the forefront, defending their right to vote, defending their vote. Mr. Kalimbo, what can we learn from Zambia, and what can we draw from the recent elections in Zambia? What can we learn in Zambia from Zambia?
Well, first of all, I wanted to say there's no difference between Zambian youths and youths everywhere else across the African continent. I do not believe there's any difference. I think the only difference could be that from our side as a party, we mobilized and we led a very spirited fight. Otherwise, I think the young people within the continent, whether they're in Ghana, whether they're in the West Africa, where we've seen a lot of coups over the past few months, they are the same as the youths in Zambia, but the only difference has been that our young people were very much conscientized. We conscientized them, we hosted spaces, we engaged them. From the beginning, it was not easy because they were afraid to even associate themselves with the UPND. I for one, was one of those. I was young, I was being told I would never get a job in this country because I was from the opposition and I was young. People did not want to associate with me because of my association with my president. And so that has always been the goal. That our countries must come first. We must be able to mobilize one another as young people. Politically, we've got no time for being crybabies. We must go out and save our country. We must go out and ensure that we speak frankly and honestly about the issues that we face. And we shouldn't just speak about those issues because we are looking for opportunities in the end. Those opportunities must trickle down to the masses of our people, the kids that we're going to have, the grandkids that we are going to have. And so what happened in Zambia is a lesson that really could be drawn by any other countries, and particularly the youth within the African continent. They must look at what we did. We were giving a speech at that time when we were in Lilongwe to say, look at Zambia. We are the people that for so many years have faced problems, but whenever a ruling party failed to deliver its promises, the masses of our people stood in the line to say, not anymore. We voted out Kenneth Kaunda in 1991, when he had stood in for elections for so many years and was president for 27 years. We voted out the MMD in 2011, when there had been election, they had been in power and failed to deliver their promises. In 2021, last year, we voted out another ruling party, the Patriotic Front. And so we were saying, look at Zambia. This is what we could do if we could be able to stand together. This is what young people could do if they could be able to provide the direction that they need, that they could pick up their future and deliver it safely to the next generation. And we believe young people in Zimbabwe could be able to do that too. And that shouldn't just happen with the young people that are in the CCC movement. That shouldn't just happen with the young people that are involved in politics. It must happen with everyday citizens. They must go out, door by door, line by line, to defend their country, line by line, to ensure that they save the country and bring in a leadership that can provide a better education system, bring in a leadership that can provide better healthcare facilities, and a government that can do for its people that which the people cannot do for themselves. And we think that can be done, and we believe the young people of the African continent can be able to do that. And like I mentioned, I don't think there are any difference from the young people in Zambia. All that is needed is a serious campaign to conscientize them, to go out and defend the vote and let them know why it is very important that they must get involved in the electoral process. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Joseph Kalimbo, for that presentation. Thank you guys for joining me to talk about the issue of the SADC region and the elections. What can be done? What's the voice of young people in terms of SADC region and the elections? Thanks so much, Netai, for joining us. Thank you so much, Piwe, for joining us. As well as Joseph, thank you so much for joining us. It's been great discussing this with you. Touch on a number of issues: the right to vote, young people must go there, their voice counts, their voice matters. We talk on the issue of defending the vote, and also the right to participate as young people. It is important and critical for young people to stand up and defend and vote in the Zimbabwean elections, as well as other elections in the SADC region. Thanks so much, guys, for joining us. Thank you so much.
Thank you.